In today's lesson of what light novels teach us, if you want to live a longer life, never drop into the tomb of Nazarick without an invitation. Hello everybody, Justus R. Stone here, and on this channel I focus exclusively on light novels, news, reviews, such as the review I'm about to do, as well as countdowns of the most popular light novels in Japan. So if you love light novels, you should subscribe to the channel. And today I'm going to be talking about volume number 7 in Kugane Maruyama's light novel series, Overlord. This one is published by Yen On in English. This is the most recent volume. If you want to pick up your own copy, I do have links in the description down below. Now, this volume is subtitled Invaders of the Great Tomb, and in some ways, I gotta be honest, it's almost like a horror movie setup, this particular one, or, you know, it's like that kind of like doomed expedition type series story that you see it in movies all the time. Basically, in this volume, we follow a bunch of workers. These are essentially people who have decided to operate kind of like adventurers, but a little bit more on the down low and the not quite so legal side of things. And they're hired to go and investigate a new set of ruins that have been discovered. We all know that it's the Tomb of Nazarick, and, well, unlike my usual hilarity ensues. Yeah, there's no hilarity in this book. Well, I mean, I guess if you're a little bit sick, maybe there's some hilarity. Well, okay, there was a couple moments I'll chuckle. I chuckled, I'll be honest, because maybe I'm kind of sick. I don't know. In any case, this really is focusing on these workers going into the Tomb of Nazarick and all sorts of, well, predictably horrible things happening to them because Ainz and company just really don't take very kindly to uninvited guests. Shocking! In any case, this novel now, okay, I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, and I don't usually make a big deal about my Goodreads ratings and stuff like that, but, you know, in particular, I think people point me out on the whole Overlord thing, because this is one of those series that I give quite a number of perfect scores to. Not always, but often. Probably more than a lot of other series that I read. And it's true that I am a big fan of Overlord. I do love this series. It's so unlike so many other light novels, and even though it started off initially as the whole guy trapped in a world that's similar to his video game he played, it's so gone so far away from that. It's gone so far away from that. And so in any case, my point is, there were a couple things about this volume that kind of kept me from loving it. And contrary to what you might think, it's not because in this volume we pretty much see Ainz take the final dump on his humanity. It really isn't that, actually. That surprisingly didn't bother me much at all. In fact, that was when I thought the book was actually being really good. I think the problem that I had with this volume is that I actually found the beginning very hard to get into. I couldn't get invested in it. It wasn't until these workers finally got to the Tomb of Nazarick and it was like, oh, hey, it's our favorite characters doing terrible things to people. Yeah! It wasn't until that moment that I kind of felt like, okay, now I'm invested in the book. Because really, yeah, like, I don't do spoilers really on this channel, but come on. Any of you know, you gotta know when you're introduced to a whole bunch of strong yet ultimately disposable characters, and their whole story is that they're going to the Tomb of Nazarick uninvited to plunder its riches. You know what's gonna happen. I know what's gonna happen. Anybody who's seen the first 2, seasons of Overlord the anime knows what's gonna happen. Pretty much anybody who knows Overlord knows what's gonna happen to these people. There's really not much guesswork left in the whole thing. I mean, really, the only thing that you kind of find yourself wondering at times is, are any of them going to get out of this alive? And, well, you know, nobody could blame me for having doubts even on that point. I think it was just because, like I said, it's like a horror movie, right? It's like that whole setup of, let's introduce you to the expedition members. They're going to a forbidden temple that no one should ever go to. Yeah, you know what's going to happen. And really, you just kind of look at it and you're like, you got paid the highest wage in this, you're going to survive, and everybody else is probably done for. You know, like it just... And to me, like sometimes I guess that's fun. I think that's a little more fun in a movie. Maybe this actually... You know what? Maybe this volume in particular will be a lot more fun in the actual anime. But as a novel, when I find that the act of reading is requiring a little bit more energy and investment from me, I just kind of felt like the beginning dragged to me because I was kind of like, let's just move on to the characters that matter. And I know that probably sounds a little weird because the previous 2 volumes introduced a lot of non-Nazarick characters and I liked some of them, but I think it's because those characters felt like they were going to play a role. Those characters still feel like they're going to play a role in the future of this series. None of these characters felt that way to me. Like, I really just felt like the only reason any of these people are getting a backstory is so that the author is hoping that they have manipulated me enough that I will feel something when something terrible happens to this person. And it really kind of felt like that to me. It felt like Maruyama was kind of like, okay, we all know what's going to happen, but I'm still going to write a whole bunch of stuff that hopefully will play with your emotions just a little bit. Particularly with the epilogue and how this book ends. It totally, that to me is what Maruyama was going for. And I mean, that's fine, but just when you come out of like volume 6, which it was like every page was filled with stuff that mattered and that was cool and that was building to, you know, this game-changing sense of what was going on, this book just kind of felt like we slapped the brakes on a little bit just to kind of tell a cool story about just how horrible the denizens of Nazarick can be to human beings. Now, that said, there are definitely still very good things in this book, and there are things that happen in this book that are going to play big, big roles in Overlord going forward. I mean, it is not a disposable entry in the series by any means. There are little subplots that are threaded through the book, bits and pieces that sort of lead you on this kind of breadcrumb trail until finally you get to the end and it kind of all comes together. That part of it, very cool. Also, the whole thing with Ainz, and again, I don't really want to get into a spoiler, but there is a chunk where Ainz himself, as Ainz, not as, you know, Momong or whatever, as his Dark Knight persona. It actually is Ainz himself, and there's this chunk of him sort of facing off against these people, and the psychological play that's going on with Ainz and the way that he is behaving and acting and reacting, it was fascinating to me. There were definitely elements in this book, particularly that moment, and there was a couple of others sort of threaded through it as well, that I was just in there going, wow, like Ainz is just becoming this very interesting, complex character. And the way you can see there's still, even if on a certain level he no longer acknowledges his humanity, you can still sort of see those slight vestiges of it cracking through the surface every now and then. It was fascinating to me, and like I said, just makes Ainz this interesting character. Interesting because he's fun in some ways to watch a main character just become a monster, but interesting too just because of this sort of imbalance that you sort of see in his emotional state. It makes him compelling to me, and sort of seeing this journey of this man who was a human being, who then found himself in an extraordinary circumstance, who then felt that he had to play a certain role in order to survive, but then has now transitioned from playing that role to more and more becoming that role. And I mean, we still get those little moments of doubt and those little things, but wow, it really is this very interesting character progression, and it's just so funny to see because, you know, I think about another series that I absolutely love, which is Danmachi, and how it's just the complete opposite. You know, you've got a character who started off being nothing, working their way to becoming this incredible hero with all of these trials and everything else. And then you have this other character who's going the exact opposite way, who's just starting as a normal guy, but becoming the ultimate, like, villain, the ultimate monster, the ultimate overlord. Every time I read a volume of this book, I do find myself just really, really excited with this anticipation of just where the hell is this series going? What is the end game? Because I can see it going so many different ways, and the series just keeps kind of surprising me. I have to be really honest with you. So all in all, like volume 7. So here's the thing. So volume 7, like I said, the beginning, I was kind of like, I kind of found it hard to get into just because, like I said, I had zero emotional connection to any of the characters that were introduced because I was kind of like, I will probably never see any of you ever again. But then we get to Tomb of Nazarick, and it's like, okay, this is cool now. Even though there's, you know, even though some of it really isn't going to build plot, it's still wicked cool and gnarly to watch. And then, and then of course, as I said though, on top of all that, we still do have this character progression. We still have this movement forward of the, what were we even going to call it? Ainz's master plan, but it's not even Ainz's master plan in some ways. He's just kind of rolling with it, it seems, or at this point, even though he didn't initially come up with it, he's kind of like, yeah, all right, it works. Yeah, let's just take over the world. I mean, you know, nobody can really threaten us if we've taken over and everything and killed anybody who bothers us. It's just seeing that progression and seeing that change, and man, where this book leads off, and I'm not talking about the prologue, or sorry, the epilogue. I'm talking about just before the epilogue. Wow, like, man, where that ends, I'm just like, oh, bring me book 8 now. So all in all, volume number 7, bit of a weaker start to the book, but still a heck of a lot of fun. Still something that you must absolutely read if you are an Overlord fan, because so much still happens, even though it's not like the focal point of the book. There are still all these little subplots and little breadcrumb things that happen throughout the book that, man, are just setting up a ton of stuff happening in the future volumes, and really just starting. Yeah, like I said, you know what? If volume 6 was kind of like that denouement, that kind of moment where we kind of went from Nazarick being in the shadows and kind of being manipulative and stuff like that, and cautious and everything, and volume 6 kind of bringing it all to a head and bringing Nazarick, at least, you know, its power out into the light a little bit. This one is kind of like that pivot point where it's like, you know, there's not as much meat to it, but there's definitely these moments in it where you're kind of like, you can feel the shift where we're going to change gears into the next sort of phase of Overlord. Yeah, you know, I love this series. Honestly, I probably would have given it 4.5 stars if Goodreads would allow me to give half stars. Like I said, it was just that first bit. I was like, I can't give it a perfect score because just that first opening bit. But so much good. Still one of the better series that we have in English. Still one that I would definitely recommend if you're okay with the sort of darker, grittier side of light novels. So those are my thoughts on volume number 7 of Overlord. which I'm sure you all know by now. I'm a huge fan of that series. My next review is going to be on volume number 1 of Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online. This one, of course, the series based off of Reiki Kawahara's Sword Art Online series. However, this one is actually being written by Keiichi Sigsawa, who's the author of Kino's Journey, and apparently he's a really big gun otaku, so hence why he's setting this in Gun Gale, I suppose. In any case, I kind of have been looking forward to reading this one just because my wife and son have watched the anime and they really liked it. And I saw bits and pieces because, well, you know, we live in the same house. I couldn't help but see some of it. And I'm very curious about seeing more of this and checking this series out. However, this one is also part of Cho's summer reading list over on EnglishLightNovels.com. We've already done Ao Oni and Dark Maidens, and basically what we're doing is we've picked out 6 books and we're reading each of those books, and then the staff of EnglishLightNovels.com are coming together. We're doing sort of a live Google chat about our thoughts and ideas about the book, and then we post that as an article and open the floor to any of you to post your thoughts as well. This one is actually going to be the one that we're going to be talking about later in July, so I wanted to make sure that I got this one read, so I was able to take part in that conversation. So this is going to be my next review. So if you love light novels and you're brand new to the channel, you should subscribe. I do 2 to 3 reviews every single week, plus a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. It's also the home of the Light Novel Podcast. So thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.